I think we should be good to get started here. So my name is Quentin Eaton. I'm an account manager here at Newcomp. I'll just be taking a couple minutes to give a little bit of background on why we wanted to host this event, as well as the technologies that we'll be covering. After that, Steve Ravanko, who's a technical account manager here, will be taking over and then giving a demonstration showing how Alteryx and Power BI work together. I know that most people here probably know us, so I won't take too long on this. But for those who don't, we're an end-to-end analytics consulting firm with a couple of our key partnerships being Microsoft and Alteryx. So for each of those, we're able to help out from a licensing, consulting, support, mentoring, and even offer formal training courses on for each of these tools. So for Microsoft, that's everything from Power BI to the Power Platform to anything Azure related. This is more just a reference, but in terms of the services we offer, it's really everything from development services. We have a great local team of full-time data architects, data scientists, data engineers, BI developers, cloud architects, and more. We also do lots of advisory work, so just working with our clients to discuss the different technology options out there, as well as different methodologies as they start to take on analytics projects. We also do lots of roadmaps, so just working with clients to look at where you are now versus where you want to be with analytics, and just talking through the different technology and strategies and user enablement strategies as well to get there. We also have a dedicated training practice that offers formal training courses on pretty well any analytics tool you could imagine, and also helps with creating custom training or mentoring to make sure that any training we're doing is relevant to you and your environment. So why we wanted to host this topic of Alteryx and Power BI is that we're seeing Power BI adopted more and more with our client base and just in the marketplace as well. And it makes a lot of sense because it's such a functional tool and they add more functionality to it every week, it seems. And it also integrates great with the rest of the Microsoft stack, from Office to all the different Azure services, which just makes life easy. But what we wanted to talk about adding Alteryx to Power BI is that in order to make those really valuable and cool visualizations in Power BI, you need good data to do that. And don't get me wrong, Power BI has really good data prep capabilities right within the tool, from things like DAX and data flows and the Power BI data model, or even doing it further back and making really nice SSAS cubes or tabular models that you report directly off of. And all of those work great. The one thing that we sometimes find, though, is that business users are sometimes put off by the data prep features in Power BI. Sometimes it just doesn't resonate with the way they think, and it can be something where if you haven't been doing BI development for a while, it just seems unfamiliar. So then they're going back into Excel to prep data, or they're asking IT to put a data set together they can do analysis on, and it just leads to some inefficiencies. So that's where Alteryx fits in, and I'll talk a little more about Alteryx on the next slide. So in terms of what Alteryx is, it's a tool that can be used to do anything from ETL, ELT, data prep and blending, process automation, all the way to machine learning and AI. It's really a jack of all trades. And it's this workflow-based tool that lets you connect to pretty well any data source or application, clean and transform that data, do some very advanced analysis right within the tool, and then output that data any way you want, whether it's Power BI, a different BI tool, an application, whatever it is. And all of this can be done without any code. And the big reason that we like Alteryx so much and our clients love it so much is just it works in the way that business users think about problem solving and analytics. One of the things that we love too about Alteryx is that there's so many use cases, and it doesn't matter what size of organization you are in order to get value from Alteryx. It can be used to replace pretty well any manual process that involves bringing together different Excel sheets or data from different sources, manipulating that data, putting it somewhere else, all the way to solving really complex AI and machine learning issues. So it can really do the full stack. I'm sure most of you know what Power BI is, so but really that's your great presentation layer that's able to display the data in a way that's easy to analyze, share it throughout the organization, and they just keep adding more functionality around making reports so customizable, adding some more advanced analytics capabilities into the tool, and things like being able to do natural language queries. So it's getting better and better every day. Just before I pass it off to Steve, I just want to highlight a couple things to keep in mind throughout this demo. These are really what you're getting by adding a tool like Alteryx onto Power BI. I think that the first, I like to think of it as the most important. Alteryx generally makes any data worker more efficient, but the other thing it does is it lets users who have the best knowledge of the business solve problems. It's going to let these users who don't know SQL or DAX or R, connect to data sources, whether it's Excel files, data marks, different tabular models, blend that data together so they can blend whatever data they need for the analysis and even do predictive without any code. So it's just going to make it much more accessible for users to build these great Power BI visualizations when they're able to create a data set that's easy to work with in Power BI. Another point that you'll see through the demo is transparency. So when you're looking at a Power BI dashboard, it's really important to know when you're doing that analysis, where did this data come from? How do I know I can trust it? And Alteryx is going to let you see every data transformation step before that data was sent to Power BI. So you know exactly where the data is coming from and what's been done to it. And lastly, just automation. Automation so important in today's technology landscape, and Alteryx is able to automate a lot of the manual effort that goes into building data sets for Power BI so that users actually have time to analyze the data in Power BI or even start to do more advanced predictive analytics or machine learning within Alteryx. So just a couple things to keep in mind, but I really want to leave enough time for Steve to go through the whole demo so you can see it for yourself. So at this point, I'll pass it over to Steve.
Thanks, Quentin. Just want to make sure everybody can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you. I'm good.
I should be showing my screen. Can you see my Alteryx here?
Sure can.
Perfect. Fantastic. Okay, awesome. I think, Quentin, you did an awesome job of explaining what Alteryx is and how it's used. So thanks so much for that. And then to everybody that's on the line, thank you so much for joining us today. And hopefully we can sort of give you a couple takeaways from the overall session, from my demonstration here of Alteryx and of Power BI, sort of give you some ideas and get the gears turning as to how you could leverage this to accomplish the things that Quentin mentioned, and also a couple things that are probably more rewordings of what he said as well, and these are kind of my thoughts on it, is automating time-consuming tasks is 100% one of the key value adds of Alteryx, right? And we're gonna tackle that probably the first 5 minutes of this demonstration, and then I want you to also keep in mind the ability to quickly pivot between different requests. So most of the people on the line here are probably data analysts or data professionals of some nature. And being a data professional is kind of one of those things where, like, when you tell your grandma that you work with computers and suddenly you know how to fix an iPhone, right? And all of these requests start coming in and ad hoc. Hey, I need to see this. I'd like to see this. Could we get something? Could we do a forecasting model, right? And those things kind of tend to bog up a lot of our time. So any opportunity we get to sort of free up some of those things, I think is time well spent and a great investment in not just the organization's capabilities, but in our own capabilities and our own maturity around data and analytics. And that's sort of the last point that I'm hoping that kind of sticks with everyone after this session, is that Alteryx is really a tool that kind of grows with you through your maturity, through data and analytics, both as a data professional and as an organization, to become a more data-driven organization. So we're going to start fairly simply, right? We're going to go ahead and put our data analyst hats on, and we're going to assume that we've got some invoicing data, and accounts receivable wants to know a couple of things about it. They want to know how long did it take for the client to pay the invoice, and whether the invoice was paid late, and how late was it, right? Those are some things that they're kind of asking us to tackle, and we know that it might be a little bit of a challenge, but let's just connect to the data and start looking at it. So everyone can see my Alteryx. Should be able to just see across here. I've got my file, my edit, my view, basic sort of Windows application type of stuff. And then I've got all of these palettes here. I'm just gonna quickly try and I've got all of these palettes. There's quite a lot of tools within Alteryx. We're going to use a number of them across the various palettes, but these are kind of logical containers for the tools. And then these are the tools themselves. They're these little square or circular, shapes that kind of also help us identify a little bit of what they do and which sort of palette they belong to. But every workflow starts with the bringing in of data. So that's where we're going to start as well. We're going to go ahead and bring in the files that accounts receivable shared with us. And these are files full of invoice information. I'm going to bring in one of these, and we see once I've connected to it, I get a little preview. It's previewing the first 100 rows for me, just for speed and agility, right? If this was a file that had 1,000,000 rows, which is the cap of a tool like Excel, right, that would take a little bit of time to bring in, even into Alteryx, but so that's why it's showing me 100. So what I'm going to go ahead and do, and I'm going to go ahead and run this. I'm just going to quickly move some things around on my screen. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and run this, and I'm going to see that all of that is being brought in for me, all 97 records. So it was previewing 100 records for us, but it actually stopped at 97. So this is what our data looks like. We've got country code, we've got customer ID, we've got paperless date, we've got invoice number. We've got all of these various things. And what we're really interested in is this invoice date, this due date, and the settle date for what we're trying to accomplish for our friends in account receivable. One of the things that I'm kind of seeing is that there's this country code that right off the bat that I'm going to try and get rid of. But I also know that I have about 26 of these files. So what I could do is, drag in another input tool, connect to the next file, and then go ahead into the join palette and do a union where I basically just stack one on top of the other, and you'll see that it's auto configured by name. Yeah, there we go. Auto configured by name. So because the names of these columns are the same here and the same here, it's just going to stack them one on top of the other. So I'm going to go ahead and run, and you will see that that works perfectly fine. I had 97 and 112, and now I have 209, right? Perfect. That works exactly as we would expect it to. That's fantastic. But because we have 26 of these, even that kind of takes a little bit too much time. So I'm not going to really do it that way. And for those of you that do have Alteryx and have used Alteryx before, this might be something new. So now's the time to sort of tune back in. If we go to the directory tool, you'll see that it's selected the directory where we have all of our files, or where we brought those last couple files in from, already selected for us. And if we run this one directory tool, we'll see that it actually brings back the full path, the directory, the file name, and a bunch of metadata about all of those files that we got from accounts receivable. This is where we're now able to use dynamic input. And this is a tool that comes out of the developer palette. But in case you're kind of curious, okay, what does dynamic input even do? Right here where I did the little search for it, you'll see there's an example. So I can click on this example, and it'll bring up a prepackaged workflow from Alteryx where this tool is used in a number of different ways. And this first one is exactly how we're using it right now. You see directory tool, see it's reading in a whole bunch of stuff. Then it ran this entire workflow, and we can see what the various outputs look like for these applications. But this first one is exactly the way that we're using it. And we can even see how that tool was configured to produce this output. So I'm just going to go ahead and close that. And I'm going to pick an input data source template, right? And this is our sort of, what do we want the files to look like? And we're going to use that same first one that we brought in as our template. We're going to hit OK because it's all in here. And then we're going to read a list of data sources from a field. And in this case, it's going to be full path, right? This is what we're going to be, we're taking this column here and telling the dynamic input, this is what our data sources are. We want those ones. I'm just going to quickly change this to change the entire path when it moves on from one to the next. It's going to change the entire path instead of just a piece of the path. If we had tables, we could do just change the file name and table name, and that would sort of help us figure with it on that end. But this is okay for now. We're going to go ahead and run that. Now you can see that we've got 2,466 records. So all 26 files that we had in that folder from accounts receivable are now in here. And if you think back to like trying to do this in Excel, you'd have to like have one open on the left side of your screen and then another, open up another one on the right side of the screen and copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste, right? My very first job was a data entry like specialist, I think they called it. And that was literally what I did. I just copied and pasted. I grabbed coffee in the morning and then spent the first 20 minutes of every workday just copy and pasting stuff over. And even in this use case, right, if next month when new invoicing data comes in, we still have to append it somehow. So we'd probably do a little copy and paste at least once a month if we're doing it this way in Excel. But this way, all we have to do is drop that file into that same folder, and the next time we run the workflow, ta-da, magic wand waved, now it gets brought in, and whatever we've got down here in the rest of the workflow will also get applied to the data to the new data that's come in. So we've got all of our data in here now, and I'm still really bugged by this country code here. I see all these green lines across the top, which just means 100% of the data is okay. So that means that there's no nulls, there's no blanks, there's no weird stuff like that in any of my data. But I know that these punctuations and these letters, they're not really telling me anything because they're the same for every single record. I don't really want them here because it makes it difficult, right? If I want to do like if I wanted to do some math or any sort of filtering on it, it would kind of just make my life a little easier if I were to able to just get rid of that. Now, again, if I was doing it in Excel, that would take me a while. I'd have to either learn how to, trim strings, or I'd have to, sit there and go backspace, 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 left, 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 backspace, backspace, backspace on the, and just all the way down. But thankfully, we have this lovely data cleansing tool. We're just going to use that. So now that I've got this data cleansing tool in here, it's going to ask me several things. It's going to ask me which fields I want to do, and I really only want to do this country code because the rest of my fields look okay. And now what I'm going to go ahead and click on is I don't want letters in that particular field, and I really don't want punctuations. I'm going to go ahead and run that, and suddenly I'm done. There we go. My country code is just numbers. It's just these numbers that represent the country for me. If I had something weird in a different field here, for example, invoice date, right? I'd go ahead, click invoice date as well. Well, if I click that, I can see invoice date. Now it doesn't have any punctuation. Now, if I accidentally did that in Excel with like a function or somehow in a table somewhere, I might actually be stuck with it that way, and then I have to try and figure out how to undo it. But because Alteryx does everything in memory and doesn't actually affect any of my data sources or any of my data outputs until I specifically want it to, I just unclick that, run it again, and we're back to normal, right? This is where I can really rapidly prototype and just mess around with things without the fear of doing something irreversible. I've had a few of those run-ins where I'd have to go back and be like, hi, can you send those files again? I did something to them and it's no longer working for me. But okay, hopefully everyone's with me so far. This is sort of going well. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them closer to the end once we kind of get through the big majority of this. But for now, let's go back to the use case that we've got. And we want to find out how long it took for our clients to pay each one of these invoices and if they were late or not, and how late were they. So what we're going to do is we're going to drag in a formula tool. We're going to create a new column that says days to settle. I hope I spelled that correctly. And I know that it's a date that I'm trying, these are dates that I'm trying to deal with. So I'm gonna go ahead and go down to my little FX, my functions piece, and I'm gonna scroll down to date time. Now that I'm in date time, I'm kind of looking, okay, I've got date time add, I've got date time day, got date time difference, which is probably what I wanna do. I wanna find out the difference between the settled date and the invoice date. So how long did it take them to pay? So I've got, it populates the function in here for me and it tells me what I need to add in here, right? So DT1 is my date time 1. So I'm going to go ahead and put in a bracket and I'm going to select settle date. My next date time that I want to deal with is going to be that invoice date. So if we're thinking of this as a math expression, settle date minus invoice date should give me the number of days or months or whatever it is between them, right? Into the positive. So here I need to set the units. So I'm going to go ahead and put days in here and you'll see I get a little preview of the data. Yeah, this is what the first output is going to be. The first row is going to look like that. Right? So when I hit run, I look here, there it is. First row is 58. Perfect. I see I've got a bunch of these. I have a lot of these going on over here, days to settle, days to settle, days to settle. I see some of these are actually pretty quick. I've got 8 here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually add another calculation here, and I'm going to do the exact same thing. And I'm going to create a new column, and I'm going to go with days late. And instead of using the invoice, instead of doing settle date, or no, settle date is fine. Instead of using invoice date, I'm going to go ahead with due date. So the difference between the date that it was settled and the date that it was due, again in days. If I change this to months, you'll see that it actually gives me 0 because it was 0 months. But if I do it in days, it gives me 28, which is exactly what I want. I guess if it was February, that it would give me a 1 month for that. But okay, this looks good to me so far. This is doing the things that I kind of want to deal with, right? I've got the days to settle, I've got days late. I see I've got a bunch of negative days late, which basically means that, there's the due dates are, the due date is after the settle date, right? So they paid early. This is fantastic. I like seeing that. That's probably the best outcome, right? Is when the customer pays you early. I also want to do a quick calculation here, just to make sure, and I'm just going to drag in another formula tool just to keep it simple. And this one's going to be terms. I'm actually going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to do a date time difference, and I want to calculate the term of the specific, i.e. like what is the difference between our invoice date and our due date, right? So I'm going to go due date and invoice date, again in days, just to see what our terms are for these. They should probably all be the same, and they are. So this is a quick way we can say, okay, what are the terms on these invoices? Just to make sure that we are treating them correctly, right? So we just know, okay, 22 days to settle, that is 8 days from the 30 that our invoices are termed to. So perfect, we did this correctly. That's a quick check. Now, when we're talking about accounts receivable, they probably don't really care too much by how early the invoice was paid. They just want to know that it was paid on time, right? That it wasn't late. So we're probably going to get rid of all of these negatives. And this is one of the first pieces where we're actually going to split our workflow into a couple different streams. And what I want to do here is I'm going to put all of this stuff into a container. I'm going to add a new container just to help me organize my thoughts a little bit better. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and drag in another formula tool. I'm going to go ahead and replace the days late with all the negative days late with 0. So this is where I can do like an if-else function, right? And I can see that I can do a conditional right here. So if C, then T, else F, that's probably the one that I want. I'm going to go ahead and say that if the days late here is less than 0, then just 0. If 0 is good enough, I don't need to know that it's -8 or -2 or -22. Else, I just want to leave it the same. So I'm just going to go ahead and say else days late, keep it the same. And you'll see that when I click on the canvas, Alteryx is going to throw an error for me. And the reason it's throwing this error is because the operator here is invalid, right? And this is one of the cool functionality of Alteryx when we're working with a lot of different use cases and we're really rapidly prototyping things and just building really quickly and trying to test things out. It throws errors for us very, very liberally, saying like, whoa, hey, this is not correct, right? So I don't have to run the whole workflow and watch it fail at the end and then be like, okay, why did it fail? And then go scroll back through the whole thing. I can see it's throwing an error. It's showing me a data preview that's blank. I don't want that. That doesn't make any sense. And it's saying that this is an invalid operator. And that makes perfect sense because if we go into the metadata, we see that everything is a string. Everything is just a string of characters. And that's because we brought in CSVs. They don't store data types for us. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bring in an autofield tool. What this tool does is basically looks at the data that's in our, let me go back to this, in our cell here and says, hey, this one's only numbers and nothing else. And it's only 3 numbers. This one's got numbers, punctuation, and letters. This one's got numbers and punctuation. And then it basically, based on those rules, it decides, well, you know what? This is probably a number. It's probably an integer because it doesn't have any decimals in it. This is some form of string for sure. This is probably a date. So if we hit the run button and see after this autofield tool, we go to the metadata, we see all of our metadata types have changed. I can compare directly back to here, all of these strings, and now we've got int16, we've got strings, we've got integer 64, we've got dates. So normally that would kind of be a real pain in the butt if you're dealing with this, especially in like a table of some sort. You'd have to set these, but here Alteryx can do it for us, and we're kind of off the hook. That helps me fix the problem that I ran into here. Now that I've got my final data output, I can see that everything's sort of going well. I no longer have those negative numbers in my days late, and this is probably good enough to solve the use case for my accounts receivable. But I also know that now that I have this data, my sales team or my finance team might also be interested in seeing some form of aggregation of this data. And this is where I can do something like a summarize, right? And I can do country code. I'm going to go ahead and group by customer ID and try and get me a summary of how much each customer is spending with us, right? And I can go ahead and see, okay, perfect. I went in here, I clicked on customer ID, I said group by customer ID, and for this numeric field, just go ahead and sum all of them together. And now I see our total spend by each customer, right? Perfect. So I'm probably going to go ahead and output this to whatever file type or data source that my sales and finance team use to sort of look at this kind of data. You know, I can just put it in a CSV and just email it to them. That's gonna be good enough, right? And then I can do the same thing with this data before the summarize, right? This is ready for my accounts receivable team. So I run those, they throw errors because I'm not actually writing them out. I haven't really specified any of that. But in looking at this, I've also kind of realized that I want to go ahead and add these to a container. I've realized that there might be something to this that I could potentially predict. Maybe there's some relationships here. Maybe I want to quickly profile this data and just take a look at what the various summaries are. And I don't really feel like building all those out by myself and like then doing that in Power BI, because I just really want to quickly do this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag in a field summary tool. I'm going to drag an association analysis tool. Zoom out a little bit so we can see the entire workflow. And I'm going to go ahead and connect them to this. I'm going to connect them before we did that cleaning, just so we can retain as much of the initial sort of integrity of the data as possible. And you'll see that this one's got 3 anchors and this one's got 2 on the end there. So I need to, because both of these kind of put out reports, what I need to do is I need to add some browse tools. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. There is a shortcut for this that I am going to use in just a hot second, but that's generally what you would do. And then you could also Control-Shift-B, and it'll just plug browse tools in for you. Most useful thing that I've ever come across is saves a lot of time. For this field summary tool, we're just going to summarize all of these. So there you go. Let's do all of them. Let's take a look at what that gives us. And I didn't actually do this one, but I'm also going to do all of them. It's going to take a second to run here. And we see that we've got some of our lovely scatter plots here. We've got a little bit of statistical information around some of these fields, around our numeric fields, and then down here about our date fields and around our string fields, right? And it gives us a little bit of remarks here with the say values of the field are small in value, try aggregated them. It's because paperless bill, whether it's paper or electronic, that's really just a Boolean, right? So that makes sense that that remark comes up, and we know that the remarks aren't failing us. So that's interesting. This is probably the most interesting one, is we get little summaries of all of our fields, right? We can see, okay, disputed. We see that the vast majority of our invoices are not disputed. That's a good thing. We see that our paperless bill, whether somebody's getting a paper bill or an electronic bill, it's pretty close. Pretty close. Maybe that's something we might want to kind of take a look at, because that mailing paper invoices is probably not the most efficient way, and maybe that's somewhere where we can save on costs and do something good for the environment. But if we're kind of looking at these days late, we see there's a lot that get paid really quickly, or quite a few that get paid before they're due, a lot that get paid just a day before they're due, quite a few in that -5 to 10 range, and then we kind of trail off, which is kind of a bell curve, which is to be expected. Invoice amount, we see that most of the invoices are about 60 to 80 bucks, so that's something. And we see that country code wise, this country 616 seems to be pretty popular. We've got a lot of invoices from with that country code, and so on and so forth. But we're going to quickly take a look and see if maybe our hunch that there was probably some relationship here is onto something. All right. Now, the one caveat with this association analysis tool is that it only deals with numeric fields. So all the fields that we selected as numbers, it'll do it on those. It won't do non-numeric fields. So the whether it's a paperless bill or not, it won't be able to calculate that for us. The same thing with with things like some of these other fields that we've kind of been using that are not numeric. So for example, customer ID, is there a relationship between customer ID and any of these other factors? This tool can't really do that for us, but we can still do our own sort of thinking and then do some rapid testing of various algorithms. So what we're going to go ahead and do here is we're going to see we get this lovely correlation matrix provided for us by this tool. We see perfect along the diagonal, they're all perfectly correlated to themselves. That's good. Now we've got days late and days to settle are perfectly correlated to each other as well. We expect to see that. Then we see that there's a weak relationship between the invoice amount and the days to settle. And we see that there's a negative medium strength relationship associated with invoice amount and the country code. Whether it's negative or positive, we're not going to sort of think about that here because country code isn't technically a number, it's a category. So what this actually just tells us is the lower the country number is, the higher the invoice amount. But because it's categories, it's not a continuous variable. So country code 391 probably has quite a lot of with a higher sort of invoice amounts as to some of the other countries, or maybe some of the lower ones have higher invoice amounts. But one of the reasons why we did these containers here is because I can actually click on here and disable this entire container. So when I run the workflow, that container doesn't run. You can see that that finished really quickly. So, and this is another super useful sort of piece for being able to rapidly prototype things and sort of I started working with this data set. I've got the accounts receivable piece completed. Now I want to move on to maybe a little bit of my own modeling and predictive and forecasting. So that's where I'm going to move on next, right? That's all done. That's fixed. Finance, sales, and accounts receivable will get their data the next time I activate this and run it. So I'm kind of done with that part of my my workflow and that mini project. Now I want to pivot to something of put on my data scientist hat and see maybe there's something here. Again, because we did our auto field in here, I'm going to do another auto field. I'm going to go ahead and put it up here and connect my data. I just quickly run it so that it does. And I'm going to try and do a little predicting. So if I go to the predictive palette here, I've got all of these tools, and you'll see that we've got counter regressions, we've got decision trees, we've got random forests. That's the forest model. We've got gamma regressions. We've got all this other stuff. We've got linear regression, logistic regression. We've even got neural networks. If they were so inclined to go with that. And you can see this. You probably can't see it very well, but there is a little R logo in the bottom left of this neural network tool. Actually, I'm just gonna bring in the linear regression because that's the one we're actually going to try and use. You see a little R piece here, and what that means is that this linear regression is built on R code. So if I click on it and I open the macro linear regression, I can see how that entire tool is built. It's literally built out of Alteryx tools, and there is an R tool right here which has all of our code. So if you were so inclined, you could totally go in there and mess around with it a little bit. Probably not so much the linear regression tool, but for example, you wanted to do tweaks to the way that the neural network works. You're 100%, you can open that up, mess with the code, repackage it together as sort of neural network version 2.5 final, depending on how many times you want to do it, and then use that for your specific needs as opposed to just the stock one. Now, as we kind of go here, we see that we've got the configurations for the linear regression tool. And what we're going to try and predict is this days late. And I'm going to just go ahead and throw all of these at it. And give that a run. Yeah, see, happens. Sometimes my computer is not super great at these. Okay, and we get an error. We have an error because our auto field is probably not doing what we want it to do. What do we see here? We've got a bunch of dates, we've got some bytes, we've got some strings, and we've got some days late. Got a couple of these other pieces. Let's take a look at. Just go ahead. We'll try the logistic regression instead, because I think we've got a few issues with the data types going on here. We've got select at least one predictor. We're going to go ahead and try disputed. We're going to run that. See if that works for us. It's doing something. It's crunching. My computer is kind of really hot right now because it's super hot in Calgary today. So I'm not surprised that it's running a little bit slower. But we can see that that worked for us, and we're going to just drop these browse tools on as well. I'm going to rerun that. Hopefully that finishes up pretty quickly. Give my computer a pat of encouragement. There we go. Perfect. We see that it was able to do everything for us, and we get these three outputs. So this first one, this object, this is the actual model, and we'll get to how that's used a little bit in just a hot second here. Then we get all of these fantastic statistics about each and every coefficient, and we can dive deep into this, but you know what, you guys probably don't want to spend too much time looking at that. And then we're going to go ahead and get this lovely report, this lovely interactive report here, where we can see our accuracy, our precision, our recall, our F1, all of those fun things that we do in data science, and just sort of forecasting and modeling, and see a quick view of them. We can go ahead and go to the conditional density plots and all those pieces as well, and just the overall performance, right, of our model, and sort of get a quick look, right? If we wanted to try something else, again, as easy as just dragging it in, doing one of these, and then reconfiguring it here and just seeing if it does any better for us. Those of you that are, astute data scientists or do this kind of stuff for a living, you probably noticed that I didn't sample my data, and you would do that with one of these sample tools. So you could, excuse me, I just want this one, the evaluation set. And here I can set how much of the data I want to use for evaluation, how much for cross validation, and then the rest is going to go into the holdout here. So I'm going to go ahead and, because I only really need, I'm not doing any cross validation with this one, I'm going to just go ahead and say that I want to train on 20% of my data and then evaluate on 20%, right, percent of my data, and then I would score this model with the soccer goal here, and then just connect it over, and then it would do the prediction for me and provide my output. So validation would go here, the object would go here, and then if I did a browse, just gonna do this very quickly, and then we're gonna hop into a little bit of the machine learning palette here, which is actually, it comes with a separate piece of the Alteryx platform. It's called the intelligence suite. But if we were sort of going at this and we're not really great, or forecasting and machine learning and some of those things are things that we want to get into, but we haven't had the chance to really get into too much of it, then that's okay. Alteryx does provide a way for us to sort of do it very quickly and sort of do a little bit of machine learning without having to spend a whole bunch of time learning how to code and how to do machine learning, or even how to even figure out which model we need to use, right? So I'm going to go ahead and drop that, and I'm going to go ahead and stick these into a container just to help organize this a little bit better. And what I'm going to do is we're going to do a little bit of this intelligence suite. We're going to go ahead and connect our evaluation data set to, oh no, not responding. Give my computer a couple more encouraging pats. There we go. Sometimes we all just need a little bit of encouragement. So perfect. So I've got my assisted modeling tool connected here, and we can see that it actually does not support spatial, blob, date, time, or date time types. And for those of you that are kind of familiar with machine learning, that won't be a surprise to you, is because machine learning algorithms need everything to be in numbers. And they generally, this particular tool generally likes to just have everything as a string. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to create samples. We're going to do 80 and 20 and connect it. We're going to do the evaluation set to this assisted modeling tool. We're going to run this so that it populates the data into the assisted modeling tool. Once that finishes, we'll be able to pop open that and get started on looking at what that might look like and how that piece works. A couple more encouraging pats. There we go. And we're gonna go ahead and hit the Start Assisted Modeling button. Hopefully everyone's still with me. I haven't had a chance to look at the question section yet, but I promise I will. It's really hot in here. Perfect. And so now we can see that this assisted modeling tool, what it will do is actually be able to guide us through the entire process of creating a machine learning sort of algorithm for our particular use case without us really needing to know anything about Python or R or most of these models, right? We just start building. And because we did a logistic regression up there, we're just going to do the exact same thing. We're going to predict whether it's disputed or not. You see that it's throwing me like a little warning. Once you do this, you can't change it later. And one of the key things is here, even if I didn't know whether I wanted to do a linear or a logistic regression, this would just literally, this is what it's telling me, right? Hey, you're trying to predict something that is a category, right? Which is whether it's disputed or not. So this is a classification problem, right? As opposed to a regression problem. And those are really the two problems that we deal with in machine learning. So it's selected that for me. It explains to me why and how. And I'm just gonna go ahead and say continue. Now this is where I get another option. I can do the step-by-step where it will walk me through the process, or I can do the automatic where I just let it do its thing and just, I just want to see if it even makes sense to do and to spend any time on. I can just click that and away we go, but I'm going to do the step-by-step process. And it's going to ask me to set data types. Now see on the right here, it'll tell me that for this particular feature, invoice number, it's either a numeric field or it's an ID. I know that it's an invoice number, so it's an ID. Terms, I know that's a category actually. And you can see that here it's saying it's a number, but it also might just be a category, and that's because there's very few deviations from 30. Country code, it's by default, it's treating it as numeric because it's numbers only, but again, you can see it's saying it could be categorical. So we're gonna go ahead and say category. Here, this day settle numeric, categorical, invoice amount is numeric. And we're going to go ahead and hit next. It's going to now, if I had any missing values, it would ask me what I want to do with those missing values, whether I want to replace them with the mean, the median, if I want to just get rid of those records that have missing values, all of that stuff would be populated here, but I don't have any missing values. So thank you, accounts receivable, for sending me clean data. I'm going to go ahead and hit next. And this is my favorite part, is it'll tell me if the particular feature is a good predictor for the value that I'm trying to predict. And in this case, they are all good predictors, i.e. they're not way too weakly associated, they're not way too highly associated. So for example, if we were trying to predict something like days late, it would probably give us that days to settle is basically perfectly correlated to it, So that would be way too highly associated, and it would tell us you should probably get rid of this. So I'm going to go ahead and hit next, and we see that it shows us 4 different models that we can use, and we can check these ones off. If we know that decision tree is just not going to be good for us, we can just not do that, but I'm going to leave them all on because I'm not sure what the best one is. Now it's going to crunch all of those for me and give me a little leaderboard out here of which one performs best. So we can see that our random forest one is actually slightly better than the rest of these, and the decision tree is not that great. So what I can do now is I can select this model and go ahead and add it to my workflow. And this might be another nail biter. Nope, there we go. Did it perfectly. And you see it puts all of these tools, and these correlate to the steps that we went through in that little drop down and what we selected, right? So we can see here we could theoretically just go back and change some of these things through here. But this is what it essentially is built out for us to do this. Now that we've got this ready, we've got this predict tool, so we can get our validation set back over here and just connect it to the output and hit run, and then it will produce some predictions for us. That should be fairly similar to the to what we got from the logistic regression up there, right? And so here we can see the whether disputed no's and the disputed yeses, right? So this one's pretty positive that this one was disputed, and we can disputed yes, right? So here we have the predictions, and here we have the the score that it gave to the no and to the yes, and then which decision it made, right? And we can say that we're not perfect on some of these things, right? We can see that here we did a yes, here we did a no, here this was disputed, but we didn't get that one, right? This one was predicted as a no. So although our numbers are pretty good in the the 86 range, which is pretty solid for most models, it's not perfect. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and disable that. I'm actually going to put all of this into a container, and I'm just going to disable that container. Now we get to the fun part with, unfortunately, only 5 minutes left. Sorry I took so much time on the machine learning piece. I find that super interesting. What we're actually going to do is, I know that I've got my team of Power BI experts standing by, which is in this case also going to be me, and I want to share this data straight to Power BI. So what I've just done is I've gone in here and I got the publish to Power BI tool, and I get this ability to sort of now take this exact data set that I've been working with and publish it to Power BI. And in fact, I'm probably going to actually use our cleaned up one. I'm going to go ahead and use the one that we're going to send to accounts receivable. I'm just going to connect it back down here. There we go. And it's going to ask me for a data set name, and I'm going to go ahead and say accounts receivable. The table is going to be invoice data, and the create new is going to be what we're going to do with this data set. We're going to publish it to Power BI service, where we're going to be able to see it in our workspace as a data set. So I get a thumbs up as if you can see my Chrome here.
Yeah, you're good.
Perfect. So I'm just gonna go ahead and click the refresh button, and I see, haha, I've got my data set now in my workspace in Power BI service. And what I can do from here is if I wanted to just share this directly with somebody, I go ahead and I manage the permissions and I hit okay, direct, I add a user. So Quentin, right there, I share it with Quentin, grant access. He now has access to this data set, and he can go do whatever he'd like with it, build some reports. If he wants to export it back out and analyze it in Excel, he can totally do that. And that's part of the flexibility that you might not necessarily have if you did all of these transformations or tried to do a lot of these transformations in Power BI. Is if you did them all in Power BI, it would be a little bit difficult to be able to get that data back out of Power BI. Power BI is kind of meant to be the last stop for your data. So there's no easy way to get it back out. But we're going to go ahead and create a report in the last few minutes that we have. And we see that we've got our country codes. So if we go ahead, we see those there. I'm actually going to go ahead and go back to my Alteryx real quick, and I'm going to do a quick change for us. I'm going to go ahead and say, I'm going to copy a tool that I already have here. There it is. I'm going to join this to our data set, actually. I'm going to click a join. I'm going to drag it in here, and I'm going to, just so we can translate some of these country codes to actual country names. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go country code to country code, and we're going to hit the, we're going to drop one of these country codes just because we don't need two of them. And then we're going to bring country name all the way up here. We're going to hit run. That's going to run for us. And we're going to go back. Don't save. Come back here. And this is because I left that at create new. We get a completely different one. I'm going to go ahead and create report, and I'm going to go drag in country name. And I see that I've got my countries on a map now, right? And if I wanted to do something like invoice amount, I drag those on. I probably want to do something like, let's go customer ID, let's go country, and then let's go, days late. And we're going to go ahead and change days late to be an average, So we see that the customer whatever this is, in the United States is on average 9 days late. So that's probably not great. Then we have some of these ones that are going to be just 1 day late. The ones that are at 0, we know that they've never been late on an invoice. So that's great to see. Now we can sort of build our dashboards for our various use cases, and we can do like another country code, and we're going to go ahead and do disputed, right? We're going to do disputed, and we're just going to do a count, right? I'm going to do a count, and then we could filter it in a particular way that we wanted to do this, and sort of go through the exercise of building a dashboard off of that data set and then sharing that out with the organization. I know we've got just 1 minute left, so I'm going to pause there and check back into our chat bubbles just to make sure I didn't miss any questions. Unfortunately, I had to cut the Power BI piece there short a little bit. Oh, 1 second, let me get this. Sorry, Quentin, would you mind reading the question?
There's one. Yeah, we got one here. Just came in. So I'm assuming that the package would allow you to do data transformation and then write out data sets to the cloud, SQL Server, anything else.
100%. So, for example, this data output tool, if I go to the data sources, I see my AWS data sources, Amazon Athena, Aurora, Redshift, if I'm using Redshift as my enterprise data warehouse, S3 if I'm doing data lake, right? All of the Azure data lake, SQL data warehouse, this is actually Synapse. They should probably change that from Azure SQL data warehouse to Synapse because that's the new branding of it. And really these ODBCs, if you can connect over an ODBC connection, you can connect to it with Alteryx. And even for something like Google Sheets, there's a quick connector. So you can literally connect and it'll ask you to authenticate. Right.
Perfect. And then, I know we're time. There's one more question. So if you need to hop off, no worries. But the one other question was, with Alteryx versus Power Query or Power Pivot, are there any main advantages there for Alteryx?
Yes. So one of the main advantages with Alteryx versus some of the Power Platform stuff is, and this goes also for Tableau prep. I imagine that's also kind of in the back of your mind. But those ones run all of the compute on the CPU. So if you have a computer with, an older chipset, you're going to struggle. Whereas Alteryx does everything in memory, so RAM. All you have to do to get more performance out of Alteryx is stick another RAM stick into your, PC or into the computer that you're working off of, or just upgrade the amount of RAM that you have, and you'll be able to get better performance. You don't have to go through like getting a whole new CPU with more cores and all that kind of stuff. Those tools run on CPU, so they tend to sort of reach the limit of what you're able to do within them in terms of data prep and manipulation far before Alteryx is going to kind of see performance degradation for you.
Perfect. Yeah, and sorry, I know we're keeping past everyone, but I really appreciate everyone for joining. We'll send out these slides, and if anyone wants the workflow or anything, I'm sure we can send that out as well. And really, yeah, enjoy the rest of your day. And I would say, if you are interested in Alteryx, it's great because it's so easy to just, do use cases for you in a matter of a couple hours and start working on those. So if you have anything in mind, we're happy to give you a 30-day trial, work with you on that. The easiest way to get started with it is just to do a trial and work through it. So, yeah, really appreciate everyone for joining today, and hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Awesome. Thanks everyone.